Hey guys, Todd here from constructionleadingedge.com. And let me ask you a question. What if there's something that you're doing 20, 50, 100 times a day that has very serious consequences to your business or your job, and you've never had a single second of training on it? And then what if that thing that you're doing 20, 50, 100 times a day, what if you shouldn't be doing it at all? And what if you're having a lot of problems because of this thing? So what is this thing? These things that you're doing 20, 50, 100 times a day that have significant consequences. They are decisions. We're going to talk about decision making, how to make faster, better decisions like a CEO would. So this will apply to you if you're a business owner, if you're a leader, you're a project manager or superintendent. If you make decisions, then this is going to help you. All right. So let's talk about problems. These are some of the most common symptoms that people have. So if any of these symptoms sound familiar, then this is going to help you. So for example, if every problem comes to you, if every question comes to you, if it feels like you have to make every decision. Hey, what about these materials? Do we need to pick up these materials? Is this price approved? Can I buy this thing? Can I order these office supplies? How do I respond to this email? How do I deal with this customer issue? The customer's asking for this change, or they're asking me a question. How should I respond? What should I do? There's a design issue. How should I respond to this? The architect said this. How should I respond? Questions coming to you from other people. Maybe you find yourself answering the same questions over and over and over again from your team. And maybe you find yourself answering questions and then they say, yeah, but last time you said this. Maybe you find yourself giving different answers to the same questions. Different day, different week, different answer. Causes confusion. If your team is spending a lot of time waiting on decisions from someone, if you can imagine, let's say you have a selections coordinator or an estimator or a project manager on your team, and they're working on something and they get to a stopping point and they need a decision from somebody else. So they have to stop what they're doing, ask the question, wait for a response, so they can either sit there and twiddle their thumbs, or more than likely they'll just put a pin in that, stop, go work on something else, wait until the answer comes back, and then pick it back up, get back up the learning curve, switch their attention, sometimes waiting hours, maybe days, constantly switching from activity to activity because they're waiting on decisions. Loose ends everywhere. Perhaps you've had projects like this where everywhere you looked are unmade decisions, loose ends. Maybe in companies there are loose ends, decisions that just are hanging out there that haven't been made and need to be made. This results in missed opportunities with hiring people, missed opportunities with clients, with partnerships, all sorts of missed opportunities. It can also result in overwhelm. When I see a team that is overwhelmed, stressed, frustrated, it's likely because they're searching for information. They're looking for decisions, and decisions are just too slow. And then on projects, when there are lots of loose ends and decisions that are getting made slowly and poorly, there are profit bleeds, there are schedule delays, punch lists can be a nightmare. Closing out a project is what could be best described as a crash landing. Yeah, we landed the plane, but everybody has whiplash, a few people are going to the hospital, plane's kind of a wreck, and closing out projects and getting them across the finish line is a crash landing. These are all symptoms that you have a decision-making problem. So let's talk about some myths and misconceptions. There are a lot of wrong beliefs when it comes to decision-making that we have to dispel. So this is the Mythbusters edition of how to make faster, better decisions as a CEO. So the first one, there's this myth and misconception that I see a lot, which is, it sounds something like, he or she who is higher on the org chart is better equipped to make a decision. He or she who is higher equipped, or he or she who is higher on the org chart is better equipped to make a decision. Therefore, the boss is better equipped to make a decision. And in a lot of companies, when there's a decision to be made, pick up the phone and they're either trained or commanded to call the boss to make a decision. So they have to go up the chain of command to make a decision. This is what some would call decision hoarding, micromanagement. If you study history, one of the reasons that the Allies were successful on D-Day, when the Allies invaded Normandy and began to push the Nazis back across France, is because Hitler hoarded decisions. In fact, he was Erwin Rommel, who was in charge of, he was in command, was away, happened to be away on D-Day, and there were divisions of tanks literally sitting, waiting, and they could have turned the tide on D-Day, but there was only one guy who could make that call, and that was Adolf Hitler, and he was asleep, and his assistants and his aides dared not wake him up because Hitler believed in centralized command. Run information up the flagpole, and the guy at the top would make the decisions and then send it back down. That is decision hoarding. That is a myth. The reality is the people closest to the problem are best equipped to make decisions. There's another myth, which is decisions take time. I need to think about this. I need days or weeks to think and decide on this thing. So here's the deal. Decisions don't take time. Most decisions don't take time. What decisions require would be information. They require data. They require urgency. And they require focus. The truth is, most decisions can be made in a matter of minutes when you have the right data and you have the right focus and you have the right urgency. You don't need time. It doesn't take weeks when you're thinking about, when you say, I need to think about it. You're not thinking about that decision 8 hours a day, 5 days a week for 2 weeks. What you're doing is by saying, I need more time to make a decision, you're just procrastinating. Saying, well, future me in the future is going to be better equipped to make this decision than current me. So I'm going to put that on future me. That way I don't have to worry about it. I'm going to make myself feel better by saying, yeah, I'll make that decision in the future. I just need time. That's a myth, and you're deceiving yourself. You don't need time. You need urgency, you need focus, and you need data. You need information to make decisions. Another myth I've seen a lot, especially with business owners, is I have to make the decision alone. I'm like Superman. I need to go into my fortress of solitude and think. And it's all on me. I need to make the decision alone. The best decisions come when you involve the right people on your team and you get help. Focus on the first question should not be, what should I do? What should I do? The first question is, who should I talk to about this? Who should be involved in this decision? Another myth that's very common with entrepreneurs is, my ideas are the best. It's my way or the highway. I have to make the decision, and my ideas are always right. And you had better not challenge my ideas. You better not even present your own ideas, because my ideas are always the best. And the last myth, which is very prevalent, is that there's this belief that no decision, procrastinating a decision, putting a decision off is better than making the wrong decision. It's this belief that it's better not to do anything than risk making the wrong decision. And the reality is, for every decision you have to make, there is a COI. There is a cost of inaction. If there's a problem you're dealing with and you postpone that decision, there is a cost. It is costing you something not to make a decision. So don't delude yourself into thinking, I just need more time. I'm going to procrastinate. I'm going to put this off. I'm going to wait on this because it's better just to leave things alone than to make the wrong decision. The reality is, in business, and in a lot of cases, no decision is more risky than the wrong decision, right? This is like the equivalent of having a really cluttered desk. If you've ever walked into someone's office, maybe your office, and there are letters and proposals and estimates and brochures and books and all these things stacked up on your desk, it's cluttered because you just haven't made decisions. You're basically saying, I need to do something with this. but I'm just not going to make that decision yet. I'm going to wait. I'm not sure if I should throw this away. I'm going to wait. And I'll make that decision later. And we delude ourselves and we tell ourselves, I'm going to make that decision in the future, but that's just putting it off. That's saying future you is better equipped to make this decision than present you, which makes you feel good, but it's delusional. So clutter is another way of thinking of clutter is unmade decisions. So if you're not careful, if you don't make decisions, if you have a history, a tendency not to make decisions and put them off into the future, you end up with this cluttered life, this cluttered business of unmade decisions. So don't believe the lie that the wrong decision is better than making no decision because of the cost of inaction.
Hey, it's Todd here, and we'll get back to the episode in just a minute. But if you're like most builders and remodelers I talk to, maybe your business feels chaotic. You're working too many hours, you're not making as much money as you should, and it seems like every problem lands in your lap and too much depends on you. That sound familiar? Well, you may be thinking what you need to do is drill a series of 1 inch or 1 1/4 inch diameter holes around the perimeter of your office, insert sticks of dynamite, and blow the whole thing up, and then start over. Well, here's the good news. You're probably just 2 or 3 simple adjustments away from a completely different business. This is what I've found. It's not about working harder. It's not about selling more jobs. You don't need to fire everybody. You don't need to do a complete overhaul. There are not 1,000 things you need to fix, and you don't need dynamite. You just need a few moves that give you maximum results with minimum effort. And that's what I want to help you with. I want to help you uncover those things on a free business evaluation call with our team. Here's what we're going to do on your business evaluation call. We'll uncover the hidden profit that's already in your business. We'll outline the 2 or 3 simple adjustments that are going to give you the most bang for your buck. We'll map out a simple plan so you can have more profit, more control, and ultimately have a business that runs without you. And if it makes sense, we'll talk about how we can work together to help you make that happen. Here's the deal. We only offer a few of these calls a week, and not everyone qualifies. So if you have a wave of work coming at you, or you're planning to grow, now is the time to make those adjustments. Click the link in the show notes right now to schedule your free business evaluation call.
Now, let's get into 5 practical strategies you can use. This is how CEOs of successful companies make faster, better decisions. Okay? This is how CEOs make faster, better decisions. Number 1, this one may surprise you, is CEOs actually make as few decisions as possible. That may sound a little counterintuitive, but if you believe you have to make all the decisions and your ideas are the best, this one's going to sting a little bit, because the truth is successful CEOs make as few decisions as possible. I found this article and a quote from, it was an interview with Julian Francis, who is the president and CEO of Beacon Building Products, relatively successful company, about $8 billion in revenue, and they have over 7,000 employees. And here's what Julian Francis said, quote, "One of my mantras is that the CEO should make as few decisions as possible. And where I do make decisions, they should be 50-50 decisions. In other words, when the team is split, and it's a 50-50 split, that's when he gets involved. If a decision is 60-40 or 70-30, in other words, if 60% of his team or 70% of his team believe they should go in a certain direction, for or against an issue, then there's already a reasonable business case. The answer is pretty obvious, and someone else should have already made that decision. Many leaders are like this." He says this, "Many leaders want to occupy more space. Many leaders want to occupy more space. They want to be the focal point or the decision maker for the team. But," he says, "I actually think every leader should be trying to figure out how they can occupy as little space as possible within their role. There are areas like corporate culture, in my case, where I've sometimes had to occupy a lot of space, but for something like decision making at the field level, I want to occupy no space at all." He goes on to say, "A leader's goal isn't to be the best at anything. It's to be the second best at everything. I've got to be good enough to ask really good questions, but if I'm the best, my individual talent limits the organization." So let me ask you this. Do you believe you have to be the best in your organization? Do you believe you have to be the best at sales? Do you have to be the best at customer service? Do you have to be the guy or the girl who solves every problem? Do you have to be the go-to person for your customers? Do you believe you have to be the best project manager? If so, your individual talent limits the organization. So your job as a leader is to take up as little space as possible in the decision-making process and make as few decisions as possible. This is what the military would call decentralized command, decentralized decision-making. Instead of centralizing all decisions, running every decision up the chain of command to the top, like the Nazis were required to do under Hitler, we're looking for decentralized command. Push the information and the decision-making authority out to the people closest to the problem. So how can you do this practically? It sounds great, but how do you do this practically? You can practically decentralize decision-making a few ways. One is to delegate outcomes to your team. If you tend to delegate tasks, then you can decentralize decision-making by delegating outcomes to your team. Figure out what winning looks like for each role, and then delegate those outcomes to them. And then let them figure out, give them the latitude on how they're going to achieve those outcomes. They might do it differently than you. They probably will do it differently than you. But you, as a leader, get to delegate outcomes. This is what winning looks like. Here are the guardrails that we need to stay inside of. And how you do it inside of those guardrails, that's up to you. So delegate outcomes to your team. Another way to do it practically that a lot of people are missing out on is to clearly define roles and responsibilities. Clearly define lanes, clearly define roles and responsibilities, clearly define outcomes and results that each role is accountable for. If people are constantly coming to you for decisions, you can establish a delegation of authority. Establish a delegation of authority, which is to establish a limit up to which they make the decision. So what this would look like is you would establish a delegation of authority with your field leader, let's say your project manager. If there's an issue that's under $500 and it would make the customer happy or it solves a problem, you make the decision and then we'll talk about it later on. So you don't have to come to me. If another one would be to say, hey, if a piece of equipment is broken down and it has to be fixed in order for us to continue working, you don't have to track me down and wait till I get out of a meeting for a decision. Just fix it. Establish the delegation of authority. Make the decision in advance. Tell them the decision-making process. Instead of waiting for someone to come to you and you have to think through it and make the decision, you put that decision-making process on paper, delegate that level of authority to them. Here's a really good, very practical thing. Grab a Post-it note, write this question on the Post-it note. How can I make this the last time I answer this? How can I make this the last time I answer this? Put that on a Post-it note and then put it on your computer screen, in your office, somewhere. And the next time somebody comes in and asks you a question, find that Post-it note. How can I make this the last time I answer this? Begin to think that way. We're going to talk about how you can do that next, but get in the mindset of how can I make this the last time I answer this question? And a great way to do that is the second strategy. So the first strategy is to understand that CEOs make as few decisions as possible. And how you do that practically leads us to number two. A great way to do that is to document your processes. Document your processes. If you're dealing with questions like, hey, how do we respond to this customer change request? Hey, Todd, the customer wants an update in the middle of the week. They want to do a walkthrough tomorrow. What do I tell them? The customer is calling me at 6 p.m. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to respond. How should I respond to that? We've got a project coming up. Who's responsible for submitting the permit application? Who should be ordering the long lead materials? Can we make this change for them? Questions about projects, questions about lots and lots of questions. So you have two options. You have two options. If you're constantly answering questions as the leader or as the business owner, you have two options. Number one, you can make decisions in real time and make those same decisions over and over and over. Okay. Option two, you can make the decision once and document it. So two options. make decisions in real time, be reactive over and over and over, or option number 2 is to make decisions once and then document those decisions. That is what documented processes are. It's getting it out of your head into a more accessible medium. If you don't have documented processes, your team has a couple of options. One, they can guess at what you want. They can do whatever they feel like doing, or they can call you and ask you what to do. And then you have to respond. That's what documented processes. Think of documented processes. This is not stacks of 3-ring binders that are just a waste of time. This is you deciding once how things are going to be done, getting it out of your head. So, for example, do you have a change order process documented? The customer asks for a change. What does your team do? How do they respond to that? Do you have a customer communication policy? Is it clear for your team how and when they communicate with customers? Is it purely reactive? Do your customers feel the need to respond to builder trend messages or texts or emails that come through at 8 o'clock at night? Do you have a documented process and a policy? Do you have a documented pre-construction process that clearly defines who's responsible for building permits and getting selections and long lead materials? If not, probably having a lot of problems. You're making a lot of these decisions in real time. So, do you have documented processes? Or is it all in your head? And then, if it's all in your head, if you don't have documented processes, I want you to think about this. What kind of problems is this causing for you? What kind of problems is the lack of documented processes causing for you? How many phone calls are you getting? How many messages do you have to keep up with? What's the stress that it's putting on you? And then think about this. What are the ripple effects of your lack of documented processes? What are the ripple effects? How is it affecting your team? How is it affecting your customers? How's it affecting your trade partners and suppliers? How's the lack of your documented processes affecting the people around you? Okay. So strategy number 1 is make as few decisions as possible. Strategy number 2 is document your processes. This is how you make decisions faster and better. Number 3 is to do what I call this manufacturing urgency. Third strategy is to manufacture urgency, right? Going back to one of those myths, decisions don't take time. They take data or information, they take focus, and they take urgency. If you don't have urgency, decisions can just float along until they get done, right? Think of a time when there was some urgency, when your back was against the wall, you needed to make payroll, you needed to get a permit application in, you needed to get an estimate out the door, you needed to submit your bid by a certain deadline, and you got it done. You had urgency. Maybe you procrastinated it up until a point, but when there's urgency, when there's a deadline, you get shit done, period. That's how you beat procrastination, is urgency. And you can wait for natural deadlines to come along, wait till things just catch on fire and your back is against the wall and then react, or you can manufacture urgency. You can create deadlines for yourself to get things done. So, for example, if there's a decision that needs to be made, here are a few practical ways you can manufacture urgency. Number 1 is, maybe most of these would fall under the category of this strategy, which I call commit, then calculate. Commit, then calculate. Most people, when they make decisions, they want to calculate and calculate and calculate as long as possible and wait until they have to commit. They wait until there's some natural urgency. But the way CEOs make faster, better decisions is they commit to things and then they calculate. So, for example, what you can do, if you know there's something that needs to happen, you can schedule a meeting with the team and tell them, hey, I'm going to present to you our new fill in the blank. So if you know you need to articulate your vision to the team, schedule a team meeting and say, I'm going to share with you our vision. I'm going to articulate our vision, and we're going to do it 2 weeks from tomorrow. I'm going to buy lunch. And guess what? When you book that on the calendar and you commit to that, then there's urgency. And if you don't show up and you're not ready, you're going to be embarrassed. So you're creating some consequences, some manufactured consequences to beat off procrastination and defeat perfectionism. If there's something you need to do with a client, you need to drive some decisions forward, schedule a call with the client and say, hey, we need to go over these decisions we've made, and I'd like to chat with you next Wednesday. Can you do it at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock? Book the meeting, commit, then you'll figure it out. Once you commit, you'll calculate how to get it done. One of the best things about either the subcontractor coordination meetings on a commercial project or the OAC, the owner, architect, contractor meetings, one of the best ways to use those is to get commitments. If there's something that needs to be done, you get the architect, the engineer, the owner to commit during that meeting. Hey, we need a decision on this. Yep, I got it. And you could either say, well, just let us know when it's done. And then you could be like this guy, David, that I used to work with, who was a tenant rep. He would come to a meeting and then say, hey, David, we need that racking layout. We need it like next week. And he would say, got it. I'll have it to you early next week. And then at the next meeting, hey, David, where are we at with the racking plan? I'll get that to you early next week. And then I'll get that to you early next week. That's not a commitment. What you have to do, what you can do, is get a commitment. When will you have that done? Early next week. What day? Are we talking about Monday, Tuesday? I'll get it to you Tuesday. What time? Tuesday. And then how are you going to send it? Get commitments. Get people to commit. And then you can use this on yourself. You can commit to a deadline. Goes in the meeting notes, goes in the meeting minutes, and you've just publicly committed to something. And you probably don't want to be like, David seemed to be comfortable coming to meeting after meeting after meeting and just saying, I'll get it next week, early next week. Chances are you're not like that. You'll actually get it done. One of my favorite strategies, let's say if there's something that you need to get done as a team, you need to document a process. You need to get the team together and you need to make a decision as a team. Then you can do what I call a FedEx day. I got this idea from the software industry. The idea is you get together and you're going to ship something FedEx style. Maybe it's Amazon Prime. Call it whatever you want to, but I call it a FedEx day because the way a FedEx day works is you get your team together, get the right people in the room, and you say, we're going to ship this thing. Maybe it's our change order policy. We're going to fine tune the specs and selections for exterior paint, or we're going to finalize the job description for this estimator role. We're going to do it. We're going to meet at 11 o'clock on Tuesday, and we're not leaving until we're done. If it takes an hour, if it takes 2 hours, we ain't leaving until we're done. That's a FedEx day. You manufacture urgency. And it's amazing what you can get done when everybody's focused and you have some urgency.
Hey, this is Todd. We'll get back to the episode in just a moment, but I've got a time-sensitive announcement for you. If you're frustrated with your team and you've ever caught yourself thinking, why do I still have to do all of this stuff myself? Then this is for you. Maybe you're constantly cleaning up after your people. Maybe you're constantly answering the same question over and over. Maybe you can't take a real vacation without your phone blowing up. You have these things you want to work on in the business, but you just don't have time. Or worse, you're concerned that your A players could be getting burnt out because they're carrying the weight of the B players that you've kept around for too long. If that hits close to home, then this is for you. There's a better way. On October 16th, we're hosting The Advance. It's a one-day live event in Nashville, Tennessee, designed to solve the biggest growth blocker in your construction business: your team. And the theme for this event is how to build the team that builds the business. Here's what you're going to walk away from this one-day event with: how to stop settling for B players, how to develop intrapreneurs, employees who think and operate like owners, and how to build a culture where your team takes ownership of results. This event is not for entrepreneurs. This is not for people who are a one-man show, one-woman show. It's not for aspiring entrepreneurs, if you're thinking about starting a business, or if you don't own a construction business, this is not for you. It is for owners of custom home building and remodeling companies doing at least $1 million in revenue a year, and who have a team and who want to build the team that builds the business. If that's you, go grab your seat for this one-day event, The Advance. Go to constructionleadingedge.com/live, LIVE, and grab your ticket before it sells out. This event will sell out, so go to constructionleadingedge.com/live, LIVE, and grab your seat for The Advance and learn how to build the team that builds the business.
Okay, so number 3, or strategy number 1, CEOs make as few decisions as possible. Strategy number 2 is document your processes. Make the decision once, document it. Strategy number 3 is to manufacture some urgency, create some deadlines. The 4th strategy is to make decisions in parallel instead of in series, right? So if you studied any sort of electrical circuitry, there are parallel circuits and there are series. When things are in series, you have, like, you imagine this electrical circuit, there's a electrical line, it goes to a light bulb, and then it goes to another light bulb, and then to another light bulb, and then to another light bulb, and the electricity passes through things in series, goes from one to the other, to the other, to the other. In parallel, which is how, I'm no electrical engineer, but the way I understand it, most houses and structures are wired in parallel. Energy is going to all the different light bulbs in parallel at the same time. It doesn't have to go through one to the other. Unfortunately, when it comes to decision making, most people make decisions in series. They just kind of trudge along and, we need to make a decision. Okay, what are we going to do? Let's think about it. Let's take some time. Let's think about it. We'll wait and see. And then it's 2 or 3 weeks later, and they make that decision, and then they trudge along. Here's another decision we need to make. What are we going to do about this? Well, let's wait and see. Let's take some time. Let's let things lag along, then we'll make a decision. And weeks go by, months, maybe years, nothing happens, right? That's making decisions in series. But if you make decisions in parallel, what that looks like is saying, all right, what are all of the decisions that need to be made? Instead of doing what I call getting stuck in the just enough to start trap, which is let's do just enough to move forward, hit an obstacle, pause, make a decision, and then we'll do just enough to keep moving, doing just enough to start. Instead of doing that, what we do is we pause and we stop and we create a map of all of the decisions, a list of all of the decisions that need to be made before we start making decisions. And we put them into an implementation plan or a decision matrix. Okay? And we have a list of all of the decisions that need to be made. And then we can prioritize them. We can put them in order, in chronological order that they need to be made in. And then we can even say who needs to make that decision, who needs to be involved. So before we start making decisions, we create a plan, a list of all of the decisions that need to be made. And then if you have a team, you can have multiple decisions being made, multiple things being worked on simultaneously, right? To make decisions in parallel instead of in series. And then the 5th and final strategy, this is a big one. This is where a lot of people get stuck, and it results in overwhelm, stagnation, lack of growth, frustration. And the strategy is to separate the decision from the implementation. Okay, separate the decision from the implementation. When leaders feel stuck making a decision because no option seems attractive, this is what happens. You have a decision to make, but none of the options seem attractive. There are downsides, there's some pain associated with it. It's often because you're commingling the decision with the implementation, right? So when leaders feel stuck making a decision because no option seems attractive, it's often because you're commingling or conflating the decision with the implementation. In many cases, the decision itself is clear, but the implementation feels very painful, okay? So what happens is there's a decision that needs to be made, and then you start thinking through it, like, oh, this is going to suck. This is going to be painful. There will be difficult conversations. There are these unknowns, what ifs, and before you know it, you've overwhelmed yourself. Procrastination raises its hand and says, hey, why don't we think about this for a while? Yeah, we're going to do this, but, let's just do this later. Let's just we'll put a pin in this. Let's come back to this later. And nothing happens, right? Because you are commingling the decision and the implementation, right? Maybe you need to make a change in your team. Maybe you're thinking, we need to switch over to new software. We really need to put some systems in place to grow the business. We really need to fix this problem over here. But then you start thinking about the implementation. The what is pretty clear. The what I need to do is pretty clear. But then you start thinking through the how, the implementation, and then you get overwhelmed. And you just go back to work. You just go back to doing the same thing. Maybe you tell yourself, yeah, we're going to do that, but it's just not the right time. We're going to wait until this thing in the Ukraine blows over. We're going to wait till after the election. We're going to wait until we start finding excuses. We start finding alibis. You're going to do this, but it's just not a good time. We're going to wait until we get this thing in place. Basically, what you're saying is, you know what? I'm going to put this on future me. You're procrastinating. Future me is going to be better equipped to handle this thing than I am. And that's delusional, right? So here is a framework you can use to separate the decision from implementation. Number one, what is the problem? Let's look at the observable facts. Let's look at some data, right? We don't want to make decisions based on gut feeling, based on he said, she said, secondhand information. Let's look at some data. What are the observable facts? Number two, who are the stakeholders who are affected by this decision? It could be your team. It could be your customers. It could be your trade partners. It could be your family. It could be you. But who are the stakeholders who are affected by this issue? Number three, what is the best decision for the stakeholders? We're not talking about implementation yet. What's the best decision for the stakeholders? And then number four, then you can think about the implementation. So step one, what's the problem? What are the observable facts? Step two, who are the stakeholders who are affected by this? Step three, what's the best decision for those stakeholders? Make that decision. And then step four, get into implementation. Let's look at a couple of examples so you can see what this looks like out in the real world. Example number one, you know what? It seems like our superintendent, Steve, he might be in the wrong seat. Maybe he's on the wrong bus altogether. Things just aren't going well. We're getting complaints from customers. There's some finger pointing going on. It just doesn't feel right. Steve's missing some work. When I go out to the job site, Steve's sitting in his truck instead of coordinating the trades. It's just not going well. All right, step one, what's the problem? Let's look at the observable facts. Have some observable facts. Step two, who are the stakeholders? Who's being affected by Steve's performance? Is the customer being affected? How is it affecting your team? Is Steve shirking his responsibilities and somebody else is having to pick up the weight? How is it affecting the trade partners? Okay. And then number three, what's the best decision for the stakeholders? Now, at this point, you start thinking, all right, Steve's been with me for 8 years. Steve's got 2 kids in college, and Christmas is coming up, and he's got a company vehicle. And how am I going to replace Steve? I have to fire him. Stop right there. Time out. That is getting into implementation. What you need to do at this point is what's the problem? The observable facts. Step two, who are the stakeholders? And then make the decision. What's the best decision for the stakeholders? Make the call. Make the decision. And then get into implementation. Map out a plan. What are we going to do? Well, let's break this thing down. Let's have conversations with Steve. Let's make a plan. Then you get into implementation. You've made the decision. You've committed to the decision. And then you're going to think about how you implement that. A second example from a business-wide standpoint, this is something we hear quite a bit. Something like, we're dealing with chaos on a lot of our projects. There are profit bleeds, chronically late delivering our projects. We're having schedule overruns or change orders. We're eating a lot of cost on rework, giveaways. Our profit margins are fading. Team seems frustrated. Customer satisfaction may be trending downward. We've got a couple of customers who, we found out that they've done projects with somebody else, and we didn't even have the opportunity. What's going on? We've done a lot of work with these folks, and they're going to somebody else. We're getting the sense that there's just chaos, and maybe we're concerned about turnover. So you come to the conclusion, all right, we need to dial in our pre-construction process. If you come to the realization that a lot of the problems that are happening on your job sites are because of the lack of a good pre-construction process. You're falling into the just enough to start trap, doing just enough to get an estimate out the door, just enough to get a contract signed, just enough to get a crew started, and then saying, hey, we'll figure it out later, right? That's classic just enough to start. So the problem, let's go through this framework, okay? The problem, you look at the observable facts, we don't have a good pre-construction process. We're having these issues. Step 2, who are the stakeholders that are affected? Okay. If you look at this objectively, you'll realize everybody is affected. Your team is affected because they're dealing with all this chaos. Your customers are feeling it in some cases. Maybe you're doing a good job of insulating them from some of that chaos, but it's likely that they're feeling it, especially if their schedule overruns and you're having profit bleeds. It's affecting your trade partners. It's affecting your suppliers, probably affecting you, maybe even affecting your family, right? That's step 2. Step 3, what is the best decision for your stakeholders? Again, we're not getting into implementation. The best decision could be, all right, we have to design our pre-construction process. I don't know how we're going to do it. Again, timeout, resist the urge to get into implementation. Are you going to do this or not? What is the best decision? If the decision is, nope, we don't need to do it, then great. Go on to something else. But if you go through this framework, what's the problem? Who are the stakeholders? What's the best decision for the stakeholders? You make the decision, we have to get our pre-construction process dialed in. We have to get out of the just enough to start trap. We have to solve these profit bleeds. We need to nail the handoff from the office to the field. You make that decision. You commit to that decision. And then you move into step 4, which is implementation. That's when you start thinking through implementation after you've made the decision. So separate the decision from the implementation. All right. So let's recap. These are 5 strategies to help you make better, faster decisions like a CEO. Number 1, recognize that CEOs make as few decisions as possible. Number 2, document your processes. Documenting a process is making a decision once. Number 3, manufacture urgency. Create deadlines. Manufacture urgency. Number 4, make decisions in parallel, not in series. Manufacture urgency, make decisions in parallel. And then number 5, separate the decision from the implementation. Separate the decision from the implementation. So here's my question for you. Here's my challenge for you. Think about your job. Think about your business, your life. Maybe it's your marriage. Maybe it's your health. What is one situation that you need to make a decision on? Maybe it's something that you've just been procrastinating on. Maybe you're guilty of saying, hey, future me is going to be better equipped to handle this decision than present me is. Maybe you've told yourself, this decision just takes time. But what is one situation that you need to make a decision on? And if it's a business decision, think about this. Do you need to make this decision? Or who needs to make the decision? How can you make this the last time you make this decision? If you're dealing with a customer issue or a change order issue or a team issue, how can you make this the last time you make this decision? And then how can you manufacture urgency? My challenge to you would be to manufacture some urgency. Commit, then calculate. You may want to hit pause right now, send a text to a customer, schedule a meeting with your team, send out an email. and manufacture some urgency so you drive this decision forward. All right. So I hope that helps you. 5 strategies to make faster, better decisions like a CEO.
Hey, it's Todd here. Before you go, remember this. If your business feels stuck or chaotic, chances are you're only 2 or 3 simple adjustments away from unlocking more profit, finally getting your life back, and having a business that runs without you. We want to help you identify those adjustments on a free business evaluation call with my team. Click the link in the show notes to book your free call. Remember, calls are limited. Not everybody qualifies. So go book your call, and I'll see you next time.